In February 2011, savage storms raged across Scotland and the North Sea. They caused devastating damage on land and sea, and 200 miles northeast of Aberdeen, they ripped the Griffin Alpha FPSO loose from some of its mooring chains. The 90,000-ton vessel drifted off station, and many elements of the associated subsea systems suffered severe damage. For a while, the future of the whole development seemed in question. 2 years later, re-equipped and largely rebuilt, the Griffin Alpha FPSO was heading back to its station, ready for a new term of service. Quite a transformation, but how did it happen? The first response from Maersk Oil's teams offshore and onshore was swift and professional. Right away, they began implementing their well-honed routines to contain the damage and minimize any environmental impact. But the company still had to find a way of returning the Griffin field, one of its most productive assets in the North Sea, to productive operation. The recovery project team found suppliers, struck deals, and soon had repair and renewal works moving forward on a variety of fronts across Europe.
Well, the Griffin project is a very different beast. It's a very fast-track project. You're dealing everything at the same time. So while you are designing, you are also procuring, you are erecting, you are installing things, all in one pool of work at the same time, which is very, very different from what we normally do.
The FPSO made her way to Rotterdam for an extensive program of repairs and refurbishment. Here at the Damen yard, she was cleaned, restored, and refitted from stem to stern. Before the storm, she'd been the oldest FPSO working in the North Sea. The aim was to send her back to the field as one of the most modern.
Coming here, it always fills me with a lot of energy, because you can really see the people here, they are committed and engaged in getting these things done and getting Griffin back in station. There's so much passion and commitment. And I think without the people that we had in the organization, we couldn't have done this.
Meanwhile, back at the Griffin field, a fleet of vessels worked fast to recover as much as possible of the subsea system. They lifted the anchors from the seabed, separated out the damaged flow lines and cables, and retrieved the midwater arches. The anchors and mooring lines were sent to Montrose on the Scottish coast for inspection and repair. But the bulk of the recovered material went further north to Lerwick in the Shetlands. Here it was stripped down and sifted, and as much as possible was recycled. It's been a massive, complex project, extending from Norway to Spain and running on the fastest of fast-track schedules. In Bilbao, Vicine Cadenas have been forging the new mooring lines. They leave nothing to chance. Every step in the process is closely scrutinized and rigorously tested. In Ålesund, on the Norwegian coast, Rolls-Royce has refitted the FPSO's thrusters with the very latest technology. Like so many components of the Griffin system, the restored versions have been designed and built to the very highest specification. Fittingly, since Scotland suffered the worst of the storms, a number of Scottish companies have played key roles in the recovery project. Here at the Nigg yard, these are the midwater arches, which will support the risers on their way up to the FPSO. Whittaker Engineering has made the fairleads, through which the mooring lines will be guided into the hull. And Doosan Babcock has built 2 new process vessels. 2 shifts work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to get this one ready for the painters, just 7 weeks after the first plate arrived. A few weeks later, the teams at Damen were slotting the vessel into place. Little more than a year after the FPSO arrived here, they were approaching the completion of their scope.
We are taking far more care than I've ever seen before on projects to look after the workforce. Some of our incident-free mindset has been cascaded down to our third-party vendors and the dockyard, and obviously seeing the difference in the culture in the dockyard as a result of that is really pleasing.
Spring 2012 brought new challenges, in safety as in many other areas, with the launch of the year's biggest subsea installation campaign in the North Sea. Among the first key elements to roll out to sea were the mid-water arches. Their buoyancy made these tricky pieces to install, and bad weather added to the challenges. But detailed planning, precise control, and clear communication saw the operation safely and successfully completed. Meanwhile, the FPSO was on its way out of dry dock and into a deeper mooring, ready for divers to start work. Their role was to help with the installation of the fairleads, the forward thrusters, and the eye tubes. Meanwhile, teams on board the FPSO pushed on with piping, cabling, and commissioning. Their aim was to get as much as possible complete before sail away.
It's an amazing project. It's a huge project. I think the way the organization as a whole has been able to cope with the incident is quite amazing. So what we foresee now is life extension in the order of to keep the vessel on station to 2018-2020. I think the team has done a fantastic job.
And the work went on, around the clock, getting everything ready for sail away and safe operation. Until finally the FPSO was given permission to slip her moorings. Soon she was moving away from the quayside and out toward the North Sea. Less than 2 years after her working life seemed over, the FPSO was on her way back to Griffin Field. With autumn rapidly approaching, there was no time to waste. The installation teams had to move fast to make the FPSO storm-safe before the threatened winds and swells arrived. 4 of the latest generation support vessels worked together to keep the FPSO in place and connect up the anchor chains. Positioning had to be extremely precise to avoid the risks of damage to the valuable equipment already in place on the seabed. Tense work for everyone. But finally, they succeeded in getting enough chains in place to ride out the approaching storm.
Okay, I'm on. Perfect.
The last 2 years have brought exceptional challenges. And at the end of it all, Griffin is certainly a very different beast. Redesigned and refitted above and below the surface, the development's ready for many more years of world-class operation.